The theme for the month of November is it's beginning to look a lot like holiday time. And what I've noticed is, along with Home Depot and Macy's and Walmart, Center for Spiritual Living West Hawaii is getting an early start on the holiday season. So today the topic is, 'Tis the Season to Be. Everywhere around us we see signs that it's time to rejoice. We've already had Halloween. Halloween is a little different here on the island than what I'm used to on the mainland, but it's fun. I just happened to be with friends last week up in Waimea at the food court when, lo and behold, here they came, all ages and sizes and costumes, to do their trick-or-treating at the various stores and food restaurants and things of that nature. So we got to sit there and watch this whole thing parade by, and the only thing it cost me was a hamburger, because nobody came over to our table for trick-or-treats. They were going to the various outlets instead. So it was really different, but it was a lot of fun and an opportunity to see what I had been missing by staying home, waiting for somebody to come say trick-or-treat, and nobody did. This is my 6th year in the house, and I've never had a trick-or-treater. So now I know why. They're all at the food center in Waimea or the food center up here doing that in a safe and organized and supervised manner. So now that we know that we are into the holiday season with Halloween past and the signs of Thanksgiving already abundantly displayed, and we're seeing the beginning of seasonal flowers in the markets, and if you happen to go into a flower shop or into the refrigerator at Costco, you're beginning to see that the season colors are starting to show up. So can Christmas trees be far behind? From what I hear, Christmas trees are going to be a challenge to come by this year. So if you haven't already made arrangements, you might want to start thinking in terms of one that you'll have this year and next year as well, without being shorted or overexpended for natural trees, which are always in great demand, but this year not in great supply. And very soon, those tempting smells, those sights of all the foods that we bring for our Thanksgiving get-togethers, our parties, and then, of course, following on that, the Christmas celebrations begin. So, and isn't that really what holidays are all about? It's the perfect time of year for being with friends, for being with loved ones, for feasting our eyes on the beauty of the season wherever we are. I can remember the first time my oldest daughter and I came to Hawaii, just the two of us. It was right in the fall of the year, and we went to Hanamaui. We flew into Honolulu, we caught a little puddle jumper, and we flew to Hanamaui. And we were there, and it was very unusual and a lot of fun and very restful. And a couple months later, after we got home, here came in the mail a postcard, and it was about this long. And on the front, it said, Meli Kalikimaka. And it was the first time I had heard that phrase. And here was a picture of palm trees decorated like Christmas trees, and people in hula skirts and tops that were red and green. And it was, here's a Christmas greeting in Hawaiian. I've never forgotten that. It took me a long time to learn to say the word. But I use it a lot now because it has such meaning that even though we are on an island in the South Pacific, Christmas is with us because Christmas is a state of being. It's an idea that brings a lot of varying emotions to us. Each morning as I get up and I look out the window and I see Mauna Kea and I see Mauna Loa, and I see Hualalai, and I see the Kohalas, and on a really clear day, I see Haleakala. And that to me is the beauty in each season, that it is as beautiful to me on Christmas morning or on New Year's morning as it is on July 1st or February 14th or any other day. It's a celebration of the beauty that exists in our lives when we simply take time to enjoy it. And then take time to enjoy it with friends, with loved ones, with relatives, and with the children. 2 nights ago, I was down at Wailea Bay and saw one of the most beautiful sunsets I can remember since I have been here in the islands. And it reminded me of the time that I spent with Kim and Dave when I first moved here to the islands. And Kim and I used to go down to Puko Bay in the evenings and watch the sunset. And it reminded me that despite the fact I see that sunset every night from my lanai in Waikoloa, it's different down at the ocean. The light of the sun on the waters and watching it drop into the cloud cover and then pop out underneath is so unique and gives us an opportunity to recognize what a gift we have in being here. And this is, as we come into the holidays, recognizing the many, many gifts that we have, I find so important as a part of not only Thanksgiving, but the tally that I do at the end of the year. It's sort of like balancing the ledger. I think some of you have heard me when I did that talk on balancing the ledger at the end of the year with what I have done and completed, what I have to still move along. It's not the profit and loss, but the debits and credits and how those go on into the new year. So, across the street from my house, the lights are already up and on every night, the Christmas lights. Part of the reason for that is because Daddy across the street leaves them up all year long. He just doesn't turn them on all year long. Although he did turn them on for 4th of July. I thought that was really cool. And now they're on for Christmas. Needless to say, they have 2 young children. And so that's extra for them, but it's really extra for me because I can just look out my front door or the windows in the front of the house, and there those lights are. So it's already beginning to look a lot like Christmas at my house. I have a friend who calls these kinds of scenes of the holidays eye candy. Eye candy. It's a feast of goodies for your senses, not just your taste buds, but your eyes and your ears as you begin to hear the music and the sense of celebration that comes around. It can affect us deeply within sometimes too. It's a time when we can also nourish our souls with a sense of peace and happiness. When we can encourage and practice harmony in the world. I'm so glad you chose the affirmation that you chose this morning, because that's really where it all comes from, is who I am and how I am is what goes forth before me into the world. So it's really important as these happy times and busy times and sometimes stressful times, it's really important that we can balance that busyness, that stress, if you will, with deeper meanings of peace, of love. These are a part of what the holiday season is designed to bring about. It may not seem like it sometimes, in which case, pay attention to how that goes before you. Harmony, balance, joy. These are qualities that are inherent in our awareness as we open up to an awakened world of consciousness. So today, I'd like to invite you to join with me in recognizing that happy, harmony, prosperity, love are every person's divine birthright. Divine birthright. I saw one head nod yes with me. I'll say that again. Happiness, harmony, prosperity, love are every person's divine birthright. So I invite you to recognize that and recognize your divine birthright. And I'd like to invite each one of you to move into these holidays and into the coming new year with a heightened sense of the awakening of the consciousness of this spiritual community. Its people, its mission, and its purpose. So just as 'tis the season to celebrate Thanksgiving and Christmas and of course the New Year and all that these represent to you, so too do we celebrate the birth of a new idea here at Center for Spiritual Living. What will this next year look like? How will we present it, and how will we participate? And how will we make it known to our loved ones here in our communities? Relatives, yes. Friends especially. Co-workers particularly. How can we make this available and attractive and enticing to the people you care about? So just as it's the season to celebrate Thanksgiving and Christmas with all they represent, we recognize that there is even a greater message, a greater opportunity to spread this to those you care about. You know, this spiritual community has been growing for 20 plus years now. And its dream, the dream of a vital, loving, active center for spiritual growth in our community continues to be at the very core of what we do and who we are. We've had several homes. Visitors have come. Some of them have gone. But through all of it, there has been a dedication of love, of caring, and yes, plenty of hard work by wonderful people. So just as you have been a part of the birth of the idea of an active spiritual awareness center here up until now, I urge you to join with us in taking that next step in our collective consciousness. Be a part of our growing, flourishing church community as it begins to reach out now into our towns and our island, bringing its message of joy and love. We have additional activities going these days. We're doing the Christmas tree at the Manalani this year again. Please make yourself available to assist. That is already moving forward. So I'll be happy to give you more information about that after the service. We are looking for a home to do the 64 days of peace. Last year we were at the library in Waimea. Unfortunately, there is not an opening for us to have a display there this year, so we're looking for an alternate place. And if you know of something, please let us know so that we can do that. That's in February. Starts January 31st and goes through March 4th, I think it is. So it's something that we want to have ready in advance to post, to have handouts available to people as we did last year, to let people know that we stand for peace and we work for peace and we keep our eyes on the unfolding of peace. We're looking for additional spiritual groups within the Waikoloa, Waimea, North Island area to join with us so that we're able to spread the joy as well as the preparation of the 64 days of concentrated attention on peace. So when I talk about 'tis the season to be, take a moment and finish this sentence in your mind. 'Tis the season to be. Don't have to yell out your answers. You don't have to raise your hands. There's no pass or fail here. But how many of you thought, 'tis the season to be jolly, to be peaceful, to be happy, to be prosperous? How many of you said, 'tis the season to go bankrupt, to overspend, to spend what I don't have? See, many of us begin thinking about and reacting to the pressure and the stress and the cost and the dread and the dead of the holiday season when we bought our first bag of candy in preparation for Halloween. Who are we going to buy gifts for this year? How many gifts am I going to buy? How much am I going to spend? What are we going to buy for whom? And will it be as nice as what they buy for me? Or will they buy for me? See, I remember hearing a friend of mine talking about shopping one Christmas, and as she was searching through a bookstore, bookstore, you know what those are? We still have a few here and there. Or a bookstore online. She came across with, she found this little book. She came across with the idea of who she wanted to give it to. It was a little book with a brown cover on it. It was very nondescript. And it was titled The $100 Holiday. The $100 Holiday. It was written by a Methodist minister on how to make Christmas more meaningful. And he wrote it because he had heard of so many people expressing their concerns about holiday overload and underfunding. So this little book contained a really interesting history of the chronology of the type of Christmas that we celebrate today. Would you believe that what Christmas looks like today is a fascinating jumble of events and celebrations which have been scrambled together over hundreds of years? It contains pagan rituals. They've been intertwined with Christmas celebration of the birth of Jesus. And one of the major pagan rituals that actually influenced the time, it was decided we should celebrate Christmas, was the celebration of the winter solstice. Many of you probably know that. Perhaps others don't. The celebration of the winter solstice came at a time when the harvesting was done for the year. And it wasn't time yet to begin planning for the new year. So it was a natural break in time. In those days, people were either very poor or very rich. The poor were the people who worked on the farms that the rich people owned. Following the harvest each year, There was a period of merriment and revelry. There was an abundance of food. And coming into the winter months, it could be preserved for a while with natural refrigeration. The poor during this time of celebration would go to the homes of the rich to demand food and drink, since they had grown and harvested it, but didn't get to keep any of it. This was expected in those days and considered appropriate. Food and drink were provided, and often the celebrating got pretty wild. It also gave the lords of the manors, as they were called, the elites of the time, an opportunity to feel beneficent. They could feel good that they were taking care of the less fortunate, the weak, the dependent. So it was sometime in the 4th century that the idea of Christmas, the celebration of the birth of Jesus by the Christians, took hold. If you look in the Bible, you'll see that it really doesn't say what exact date Jesus was born. It doesn't give the month. It doesn't even give the season. So for a while, the Christians picked various dates. November 19th, April 7th, May 20th, whatever. Then someone along the way saw an opportunity to wipe out the pagan ritual of the celebration of the winter solstice that by then had really gotten out of hand and had gotten pretty raucous each year. The Christians assigned Jesus' birthday to December 25th, which just happens to fall during those first days of the winter solstice. So now we had two very different celebrations coming at the same time of the year. Because as time passed and people began to move away from rural settings into towns and cities, farm labor changed to industrial labor. What had once been a celebration of the harvest lost that meaning and became more of a time to loot and rob and bring harm to others. But eventually, the Christians were able to persuade these marauding celebrants of winter solstice to stay home, to celebrate with their families, rather than taking to the streets and the taverns. And eventually, St. Nicholas, a well-known patron saint, came to be known as Santa Claus. So giving gifts came into being within the family, within the home, where it was safe. The beneficence, which had once belonged to the elite, was now practiced at the family level. So the idea of giving was continued, but the rowdiness, the chaos in the streets subsided. The Christmas season came to be known as a time of peace. In our own country, the state of Louisiana was the first to declare Christmas a legal holiday. And that wasn't until 1837. The picture we have now of Santa Claus what Santa Claus looks like, was created by an artist named Thomas Nast, which may be a familiar name to you, in 1863. Thomas Nast was also responsible for the idea that Santa lived and had his workshop at the North Pole. The Christmas tree was introduced into our country by a German man who just happened to be a Unitarian. About the only thing I know about Unitarians, actually, is that they tend to be more politically correct than religious. So this didn't have anything to do with religion on his part. He also happened to believe, though, that children should not have to labor and that they should be treated with kindness. Hence came the idea of the decorated tree with the presents underneath it for children to be delighted by. Isn't this a fascinating commentary of how all of this is unfolded to what we know it as today? F.W. Woolworth, am I the only one in the room who remembers you dating yourself? F.W. Woolworth was a 5 and 10 cent store. And there was a Mr. F.W. Woolworth who was persuaded to stock a few German glass ornaments in that dime store. And they sold out in 2 days the first time they showed up. So you know what that brought about. A whole new concept of the harvest time as businesses saw incredible opportunities to make Christmas pay. Parades were sponsored by department stores to promote Christmas shopping. Some of you may remember Gimbel's, the Macy's Day Parade, which is now on Thanksgiving Day, as a matter of fact. Franklin Delano Roosevelt was persuaded by the department store owners to change the date and day of Thanksgiving, to make it a week earlier in November so that there would be a full month between Thanksgiving and Christmas. Franklin Delano Roosevelt. In the 1940s, you see Christmas and a lot of the patterns that we follow are not all that ancient. It was also in the 1930s that a professional Santa Claus school was started in where else but Santa Claus, Indiana. Graduates of that school have their own organization now, the National Association of Professional Santa Clauses. In much of our nation and in many of our families, Santa Claus has become the central figure in the celebration of Christmas. The ideas of the birth of Jesus or the celebration of the harvest have been pushed into the background, if indeed they are even known in many families. So you can see, 'tis the season has truly changed many times over in the course of history. What we now celebrate as Christmas and how we celebrate it has been invented and reinvented several times over. We can see now that if there are things about the holidays that don't set well with us for some reason, we're not bound by ritual if we choose not to be. Well, after my friend had read that little book titled The $100 Holiday, she said she sat down and she remade her Christmas list. She realized that she could reinvent the holidays, could make them new again. She realized she could reduce a lot of things that she was doing, that she was buying, things that she was worrying about. She began to see ways in which she could make Christmas more meaningful and more peaceful in her own life. And I'd like to share that list with you, but I'm going to have a copy made of it and pass it out to you next week in the interest of time. But I want to start concluding my talk today by telling you what was number one on her list. Remember to do your spiritual practices, taking time for yourself. So this year, choose to find meaning for yourself in the holiday seasons. During your spiritual practices each day, heighten your awareness of the richness of your heritage, of the joy of your present existence, and the excitement of what holidays can and do mean to you. Take a few moments to share what the holidays mean to you with those who mean the most to you. Allow yourself to see these holiday seasonal activities and ideas as your choices in the season. See yourself wrapped in love and acceptance. Feel the warmth and the comfort as you give yourself the gift of being. Just being. Birthed in this new idea of celebration. 'Tis a season. So rejoice. And so it is.